As busy moms, it goes without saying that we are entitled to our necessary breaks to keeping on with our many expectations of mothering. And me, your host, Philantha, is the mama down to join you for the necessary distraction we all need when life gets too hard, too real, and too much. Join me for an hour of necessary distraction of laughs, cries, and everything in between from adulting, culture, relationships, confessions, and beyond. Welcome to the Necessary Break. I'm your host, Philantha. We have an hour talk with one of my favorite people in the world, my husband, Parker. He is my grounding support on this whole venture, and I wouldn't be able to do this without him. And him and his undenying support goes so far in my comfort and confidence as I do this whole thing. He is the yin to my yang, and just because we chose to be married to one another does not mean that we agree on all things, especially when it comes to our cultural themes. I'm Asian American, and he's half white and half black, and that as alone impacts our direct communities, whether we like it or not. And so we talk Black Lives Matter, what we love about each other, and what makes our marriage strong. I look forward to the session with you. So, can you explain who you are?
What do you mean? You just explained who I am.
I know, but how do you introduce yourself? How do you want the world to know you as?
Hello, my name is Parker.
Yeah.
That's it.
He is the military dude in our family. He is what brought on a year long of derangement in our marriage. I'm kidding. It was definitely an interesting year-long deployment, I think, for myself and then also for my husband. He was actually doing the active servitude and sacrificing, blah, 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 while I was actually doing the real sacrifice of making sure that our family was all good to go and that our house was still standing and that bills got paid from both accounts, as I was also working full-time as well, too. So we definitely did our parts and we've come together. As I said, he's the yin to my yang. The first bit that I'm going to talk to you about is called happy hour, okay? And it's the one thing that you got to get off your chest, a personal or work pet peeve, a daily task annoyance, something that you hate to love, or a guilty pleasure.
Well, it catches me off guard here. I don't really know. What do you...
I know. You're anime.
What?
And you have horrible road rage.
That's because people don't know how to drive. Minnesotans do not know how to drive, especially in the winter. Don't even get me started. Oh, my God. Just today, trying to drive. Everyone's in the right lane doing 30, 40 miles an hour. Like, the roads were fine. The highways are pretty clear. Like, you can go the normal speed.
Yeah, but you love your truck. And you kind of...
The truck makes it easier, yes. I'm not going to lie.
Anything else you'd like to add?
That's all I have to say.
How about your anime?
No, I don't know what you want to talk about.
For a black male who likes anime.
You'd be surprised that there are a lot of different people like anime.
Were you like the nerdy type anime black guy, or are you like somewhere in the middle?
No, I'm in the middle. I enjoy it. I'm a social butterfly, a genre butterfly. I watch all kinds of stuff.
And your music too, though.
Exactly.
I think that's great because you're half white and half black. So I think you kind of get both sides. Like you get your mom's weird country alternative vibes, and then you have your dad's like, but then with your mom it's like the 90s and 80s rock, and then with your dad you've got this weird jazz thing going on. And you hung out with a lot of Asians in high school that taught you about like hip-hop or like Asian alternative hip-hop that I didn't even know within my own Asian community that existed.
Yeah, I've changed quite a bit since then.
I don't know, you still have those CDs, man.
Just to reminisce with.
What is a daily task annoyance of mine that you just love to hate on?
One of your tasks?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We have just shared tasks, daily annoyance. Could be your clothes, your laundry.
What about my clothes?
Every single item of clothing is always inside out. It takes doing your laundry twice as long because I have to turn everything inside out, each individual item.
But when you take off clothes, it's supposed to be inside out.
No. That's because you take off clothes the wrong way.
What?
Yes, there's multiple
Tell us, hun, what is the right way to take clothes off?
I'm wearing a shirt right now, right? You just grab the neck and you pull up and over. Boom. The shirt the normal way. You do like that reverse cross arm thing, pull it off, and it's always inside out.
That's because you don't have G's.
G's?
Yes. You don't have big breasts.
It still works. I can stick a pillow on my shirt and it'll work.
Okay, dude. I think we can definitely go over to the second bit here, and that is called the advice for today. What is one saying that helped you when you're in a tough moment? Or like looking back in your life, what is one advice that would have helped?
Embrace the suck.
Isn't that a military one?
Yeah, I have been in some very crappy situations. And sometimes you just have to learn to embrace the suck. It's not going to last forever, but just accept reality for what it is at the moment and push forward and move on.
What about like the feelings that come along with that? Because, I mean, you can push on, but like they still come back up because we know post-deployment, a lot of feels are still coming up.
Well, that's different than embrace the suck. I'm talking like when you're in training and they're making you outside, dig a hole in the ground. You're like, why am I here? It's like, you just got to embrace the suck.
So we're talking about embracing the suck. I want to pivot a little bit about a conversation that you and I have on the daily, which is your Black culture and my Asian culture, like the stereotypes that they withhold. For me specifically, I can say this with a passion, that I really, 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 even within my own like clan, I hate that a large part of it is them glamorizing or feeling like they have the right to implement Black culture as their own and be able to say the N-word. And I also know this with you, that even my cousins have directly said, I can say it, right? And you chuckle because he's just a little bit more humble than I am. But even though I have more of the voice, I stand up for both of us and I go, no, you don't. And you never had. And the thing is, I should preface, my husband and I, we've been together for almost 10 years. And so growing up from our teenage years to adults now, it's like these are the same people that I've heard say these words without him in the room and just felt so comfortable using that N-word.
See, that's interesting you say that because it's funny when you think about it. Like when I'm not around, they'll perfectly say it all the time. But the second I come around, then they start to question like, oh, am I really allowed to say this? Which means that they know there is a difference. They know they shouldn't be saying that. So that's why sometimes, like, what's the point even trying to correct these people? Because they're already aware that it's not okay to say it, and yet they still do. I can tell them or correct them in a situation, but as soon as I'm gone, they're just going to go right back to their old ways.
Yeah, but you have this thing about you that when you do speak up, people listen. And especially because you don't say it that often, that when you do say it, even if I say it, people are like, oh, okay, Philantha said it. But if you say exactly what I said and mansplain it, then I do notice, because when you're not in the room, they then say N-word instead of the actual word itself. Or they take 2 looks at me and I go, because I keep reinforcing that so that they know that is not something that they can appropriately say. And I think because of the way I come off, I can educate them and I can kindly do that to the point where it annoys the heck out of them that they just stop saying it entirely because they understand that it is disrespectful.
I guess you just have more faith in people than I do because I feel like you're just training them to do that when you're around.
Yeah, but
as soon as they go back to their house, their dwellings, where they are themselves, that's their true. That's what they believe is okay. It's going to take a lot more than just us trying to let them know, like, hey, that's not okay to say for them to change. It's going to take a lot of work on their part. They're going to have to go out of their comfort zone and seek knowledge to better themselves. Like that old take and take a horse to a watering hole, but you can't force it to drink the water. I can explain to them that it's not cool to say all the time, but there's still a horse at the end. They're going to make their own decisions. They're not going to drink the water, which is me telling them, hey, that's not really cool. It's inappropriate.
Yes, and you have to preface that this is about talking about my family. So like who I am in the family as well too holds a lot of social stature. And when you do speak up, you speak on who you are in my family and that stature. So what did you say to my one niece who was like, well, my Black friend said that I can say it?
I don't remember this.
Oh. Well, anyway, she said that. What would you say to that? And she's like, well, I know you're saying that, but my friend says that I grew up in the hood, so I'm allowed to say that. And there's a lot of them that said that I could.
I don't know. That's tricky. That person sounds very entitled in their opinion that they feel they have the right because they were told by someone Black or whatever that they could say it. That's still just like, you are not Black. That therefore does not give you the right. Like, I get, your social standing with some friends, it might be kind of cool, but like outside, like you shouldn't be saying it.
Yeah, it's derogative. We as Hmong people did not experience slavery, nor were we ever pinned against white man here in America. And if anything, we are reaping a lot of entitlement and privilege that even Black people still don't have. And all of the marches and all of the laws that have been put in place to reverse it has been for us, in which we weirdly, proudly just kind of stomped on Black people and was like, thanks for it, but I'm just going to continue. And I think that's a little bit ignorant. But I also know that is something that my Hmong community is not ready to speak about, especially the Hmong men.
Yeah, that's a lot of those hard conversations to have, and especially when they have that, what you call it, cultural, what do you call it? You know,
what?
No,
I don't know what you're saying.
Anyway, just that culture, that belief really conflicts with like the social standing and like Urban Dictionary, how that all crosses over, and it's just very hard to communicate, especially like the different generations.
Yes. I don't know what those official terms are, but I do understand the idea of what you're trying to say there. So we've spoken a little bit about the Asian culture here. Let's talk a little bit about the Black culture. What are your thoughts on your Black community?
That is a very mixed bag.
Why do you say that, honey?
And just in today's like climate, it is a very sensitive subject. And my personal opinion, I feel that a good percentage of Black people are not ready to have the hard conversations.
Why do you, like, what do you think contributes to that?
You know, I think it's kind of that, what do you call it? It's the world as it is. Men aren't allowed to have feelings type thing. And then, kind of the Black mentality takes that a step further. And it's like, I think we were talking earlier, you recorded a video and I was doing yoga with Avery, our daughter, and she wanted to have fun and do yoga. And you were talking about it, how one of your friend's moms reached out and her husband, a Black man, thought that I was probably gay for doing yoga with my daughter. That's like, why does your mind go that direction? As a father, I'm happy that my daughter's happy. I'm happy she's looking at it and having a smile and we're enjoying and having a good time. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. But for whatever reason, like they have these like certain stigmas about them. And if you want the world to change, sometimes you have to do a lot of internal work all at the same time. And it's just, like I said, it's a very mixed bag. And that's just one very small piece of the puzzle. When I talk like Black culture, I'm not talking like, jump in the broom. That's like tradition. It totally makes sense. Part of my family doesn't, but there's like this other part of the Black culture where it's like this is going to get very surface level. Sometimes, like
you can say
the
you're Black,
banging, the drugs, hey man, cold man, talk like that fragmented English stuff. I get it. You're allowed to be yourself and express yourself, but when you get in certain situations, right, and you start acting and behaving like that and dressing like that, like you fall into that stereotype, and people are going to see you that way and treat you that way. That's not how the world should work, but that is how it works. It's unfair and it sucks, but it's the truth. You get tired of that stuff, don't walk into a store with your pants sagging, up in a hoodie covering your face, bebopping into the store. Of course that manager's going to be eyeballing you, because that's what people who steal from that store, that's how they typically dress. Not just because of your skin color, but like everything about you. If you walked in there, like I walk in our sweatpants and a sweater half the time, but I show my face, I look at the dude and say, hey, how's it going? I walk in there. I never get glanced at. I mean, when I was younger, but never mind.
Do you think what upholds these stereotypes, or for part of the Black culture to call it Black proudness, is generational trauma?
Generational trauma, that's a little too intellectual for my brain to understand, but I get where you're going. And, again, it's like, it's just very tricky and complicated, but I believe that is a part to that puzzle where like these kids grow up into this system, or not system, but I think a lot of it stems from parents, because being a father myself, I've seen my own actions repeat into my child's, like in the moment. And I still am paying for it to this day. I will specifically always remember when I taught my baby girl about not touching stuff when she had dirty hands. And to this day, she will not grab like her own cup if her hands are dirty. She'll make me do it, all because I taught her that. Now, like I take that in, I internalize like, man, that is insane. Look how that simple sentence I said to her like a year and a half ago is such like imprinted on her brain now that she still remembers that. So when I think about that, I'm like, okay, and I put that in place with like when she kind of sensitive subject, like those Black parents, and it's just like, can you imagine that, like growing up, how much information you absorb and how much that impacts your life down the road? That like it really does stem with the parents, and parents kind of have to learn to not necessarily stop what they're doing, but honestly, like, it's kind of tricky. When I say like, you got to learn some more, take some knowledge, read some books, and just like try to better your child to better prepare them for the future. And I had those hard conversations like, hey son, you are Black. You are always going to be seen as a Black man. And in today's climate, that is honestly, it's kind of dangerous. If you ever get pulled over, do what the officer says. Even if you are in the wrong, it doesn't matter. You need to listen to that officer because you do not want to give them the right or create that situation for it to turn badly. It's better for you to just, be a little disgruntled, have 10 minutes of your time taken while they, they pull over and they look at your car real quick because you've done nothing wrong, if you've done nothing wrong, and then go about your life instead of instantly trying to fight it because that's all they see all day and you're just going to make them angry. And again, that's not how it should work, but that is the truth. And we can't change them, but we can change ourselves. We can change that perception. Like I said, I honestly think it starts with us.
I think that's part of it. I think the other part is also the white man too. Like, I think you and I were just talking about this the other day and you were like, oh, well, these certain friends, they would love, the girlfriend wanted to make spring rolls. Like, would you be able to teach her how to make spring rolls? Like, that'd be so much fun for me. And as much as I would love to do that, I'm kind of, after everything that happened in 2020, like, it was eye-opening for me too, to kind of be like, why do I, as the colored person in my friend group of white women, why is it my opportunity to teach them about how to be cultured? How did that become my responsibility to show them about what is a norm for me? So, sorry, what was the topic?
I don't know. You switched it. You started changing it up.
I was trying to get to, I don't remember. But any comments on what I said? So anyway, going back to it, on understanding the other half of white people, it's also them learning their roles and not contributing to it, because we do live in a world where their white privilege goes way further without them even saying a word than a black man who it gets pulled over. Like, they have a moral responsibility, and because of white privilege, no, they don't have to take action on it. And also at the same time, that to me is a violent crime against a family like ours when it comes to wanting to be friends or neighborly or things like that, because that enables a lot of racism to occur and just mutually agree to disagree on the fact that you sort of hate people that are a different skin tone than you are. And I know that kind of takes it to a slippery slope, but that's why I get so wearyful when your friends now are like, they see it as an opportunity to get cultured, but why is it my responsibility as the Asian wife of the military man to teach these other military white people how to be cultured? Does that make sense?
Yes, but I feel that you're taking that a little bit out of context. Because, like, where else are they going to learn? It's got to start somewhere.
It would have been fine if it was, let's do a trade. Can I teach you how to make this family recipe and you teach me how to teach that family recipe? That comes off more mutually acceptable than being like, oh my gosh, Philantha, you should teach me how to cook one of your meals.
Yeah, you got me there. That makes sense. Especially when you put it like that, makes sense. Because I know, like, my dad, he's huge into food. He's always asking for recipes and stuff like that, but he's more than willing. But he truly is like a culinary expert. He likes to learn and cook and make his own meals at home because, he enjoys that stuff. It's a lot different than...
He makes the best margaritas, y'all. And if you follow my Instagram... all summer long, I am drinking on his sangrias and margaritas. Okay, sorry, back to your story.
To say there's a huge difference between, like, when my dad's going about it, like, you can tell, like, there's genuine intent. Like, he enjoys it, he's interested, all that stuff. And when other people are just doing, like, oh, because it's a fun experience. Yay, I got to make spring rolls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's a aspect of it where it gets almost fetishized and not respected. And that's where, anyway, going back to your topic of, like, it's also a white person's accountability and social responsibility to not automatically point the finger at the black community, but also acknowledge that there's only so much of the topic that you can talk about because you are not black. You cannot fix that system and that part, but that does not mean that you go ignorant about your part in racism in your interaction with them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Again, I don't want to say I disagree, but, everyone's entitled to an opinion. But it's not to, like I said, it's so very complicated. There's so much to it. There's so many different pieces of the puzzle. And again, I say, like, the easiest thing to change is yourself. To start making a better impact on those stereotypes, a better impact on the culture, a better impact on your perception. Like, I know, like, the big one's college. They say white privilege, all black kids can't afford to go to school. Like, you didn't have no fucking money. Yeah, right? What did you do? Yeah, you had no money. You were dirt poor too. And yet you took the necessary steps to take out some loans, apply to college, you applied for scholarships, stuff like that. You worked hard and it's paying off. And again, they have the same, no, don't interrupt me. They have the same, what's it called? Like the same, almost the same opportunities that you did. Mm-hmm. But I think the biggest disadvantage there is the misinformation. A lot of, I want to say Black parents, I feel, aren't invested in their kids going to college or therefore aren't going to help them find resources. And at the same time, I've like the kids I went to school with, man, that crowd was straight up failing all their classes. They barely got graduated and they thought that was cool. And I look at them now, I see them on social media. It's like, damn, like, well, that's what you're doing with your life.
You still living like you're 18.
Yeah. Damn, you're 28, wife, kid, house, big house. I got a boat, I got a fucking truck, I got hobbies. Like, I'm living life. I see it's the priorities in the wrong place.
Yes, and I think we need to give a little bit of compassion to what the Black community structure is, where it is primarily women-led households with a lot of baby mamas and baby daddies and not a lot of strong Black power. Other than what we see of Beyonce and Jay-Z. I mean, even they got their own problems, you know? Problems in the elevator.
I'm saying Black power. There ain't no Black power. That family, like you see, you just described, that family dynamic is all screwed up. Like I have quite a few friends that are in that situation, but I also have a lot of friends who are in the exact opposite situation, where they want to be hands-on fathers. They want to build that family core values. And those are the people that's what it's going to take. More people doing that to change the overall problematic situation with the family structure.
Okay, so here goes the second bit, which is advice for the day. I feel like we should at least get back to that. What's the one advice that you would give? This. Oh, shoot. We already did this part. Okay, how about hell no? This is funny. I want to hear what you're going to say. It's relationship things that are just a hard boundary of just not partaking in, like intimacy, playfulness, body part, partner, habits.
Butt stuff. That is
for you or me?
For me. This is mine. You're talking about me. That's a big no. Just no, and no.
Yeah, you want to let me walk up behind you?
Because I have been betrayed.
You have not.
What
are you talking about?
You remember that one time. You remember at our old house. I was walking up the stairs. I was fresh out of the bathroom. You know, I had a really rough session in there. So I was a little like tender downstairs and I was a little more forgiving. And you thought, oh, this is going to be funny. You went to go poke me in my butt as I was walking up the stairs. And your tiny little finger found like the bullseye and just, I swear, prodded and like played around in there for a second. I felt so violated. I felt uncomfortable. It was like disgusting. My skin was crawling. I was like, ugh, I just, nope. And that's when I knew, never again. You are not allowed to walk behind me. You lost that right.
You just have such a nice big booty. It's so nice to pat.
That is like a black hole. It does not exist. You can't even go near it.
So how do you feel about raising our very triracial baby?
I am excited, but it's going to be a lot of work. I mean, oh my God. Like I said, today's climate, like everything that's going on, you know, just on top of being a female, being black, white, and Asian, like, oh man, it's a mess. And trying to navigate that is going to be difficult, but I feel that we as parents have a pretty good tool set that will help us to kind of work on that and, you know, just do the best that we can do. That's all we really can do. Set her up for the future. Do
you feel like the last 3 years have been really hard for parenting for you?
Last 3 years, well, technically I was gone for a year, so 2 years. The first year was hard because I didn't feel like I was needed. You know, you talk like, what's the equivalent of like the baby blues for women that men get?
You guys get baby blues too, postpartum depression.
Yeah, postpartum depression essentially. Just baby always wanted mama, and I just kind of sat there and didn't really know what to do. This is my first kid. I'm the baby in my family. I never dealt with kids before, so it was a very hard learning experience. It was easy. I mean, a lot of times you just sat there and giggled, and so I was like, I can do this. I was like, I used to just, I can't wait till she's older. I can't wait till she can do this and that. And now I'm there, and I think it's even harder because she can talk back, she can run away, she can say no, she can, she gets her wants, her needs, all this stuff. She can verbalize, she can communicate. So it's a lot more fun, but at the same time, it's so much more challenging. So overall, the past couple of years, it's as hard as it has been, it's been very rewarding. I said, anytime I see a smile on her little face, it brings me joy. And I've never known love like there is love for your own child. I would kill for Avery. And I do not mean that lightly. I'm like, oh man, if you hurt my baby girl, it's game over.
Yeah, and he's grinning as he says that because they are literally twins. Like, unknowingly, they're twins. And I think it bites him in the butt sometimes because he doesn't realize that his normal adult actions are things that she takes in and follows through. And she's a smarty. She is such a smarty, especially when we're at the store. There was a broken mic and we told her we couldn't take it home because it was already broken. And her response was,
but we can change the batteries.
Oh my God. Parker and I just looked at each other like, what do we say to that? I mean, it ain't wrong. My question to you is, how do you feel about Black dads? Someone's in your family and how they've parented and how they've shown up, I feel like may have contributed to it.
The majority of my family was good. I spent a lot of time with my uncles when I was younger, and my dad, and hanging out with my cousins. A good chunk of my family is just like a standard American family. There's nothing really that made us special. We didn't follow any crazy trends. Like if you looked at us, we'd be no different than any other American family. It's really hard to describe that, but
I would say y'all ain't like the black family. Y'all are like the holy Christian, almost whitewashed, but like really holy with like the gospels and everything, but like hold very true to the white colonized trauma that's happened. Because your grandma had certain, expectations of what you could and could not do. And then your dad, as far as just like being a Christian and like how you can't swear in the house and you gotta put your hat down.
I think that was just old school rules, man. Back in the day, like you walked in the house, you took your shoes off, you weren't allowed to wear hats. I think it was just a generational thing back then. Like you came to someone's house, that's how you showed respect. You obeyed their rules. And like nowadays, when I grew up, like again with my grandma, that was the same way. But going to all of my friends' house, we don't really have those
mannerisms.
You call them mannerisms, but like I said, I think it's just like the biggest thing was a generational thing. Because my dad never really instilled that on us. We had some other things where like even if you finished food at the table, you weren't allowed to leave until like almost everybody was done. Because it was like we were having family dinner. You could sit there and you could talk with them. You didn't have to finish your food.
That's why you tell me we to stay at the table. I was so confused where that came from because we had never talked about that before.
Because like I said, it's family time. Just because you're done, you don't get up and walk away. You can sit there for a few minutes.
Swear it, because y'all don't do that anymore.
No, we did. As like growing up, we had family dinners in my household.
I'm talking about like modern day, like Black dads now that you see within your family, or like them as representatives or anything. Like I know your family's pretty good, but like overall, just like your two takes on like how Black dads can show up better instead of just blaming the mama.
Well, first of all, it takes two to tango. You're just as responsible, so don't be blaming it on the person. That's just, in my opinion, dumb and very childish. Like, you made the adult decision, and actions have consequences. Now you need to deal with them. You can, go about it very, cooperating, even if you guys don't necessarily work, but you guys can still take part in your kid's life. Like, kid is a part of you. You honestly have a biological obligation to this child. Therefore, you should take part. You should be part of this kid's life.
So why do you feel like Black dads feel like they can just up and leave at times? Do you think it's just because generational trauma, again, of just not having had that experience, so it gets too scary and too much, and maybe it's a part of postpartum depression for the Black community that goes unaddressed? Because
I don't even think you can take it that deep. I honestly just think that it's part of this cool thing to do to be hooking up with all these girls, and then when they get pregnant or whatever, you just leave because you're you're like, oh, F dad, man, I ain't trying to be no dad, man. And then they don't take responsibility for their actions.
Right. And I was trying to get to what do you think contributes to that? Since you would know that best in what you see.
I think again, it goes back to the parenting, the core values. But in that household, they should be taught how to essentially respect women, first of all, and just how to be a gentleman, not be a man, to be a king or whatever, but just be a good human being.
Say that last part again.
To be a good human being.
No, right before that. No, I know. I'm just sorry. This is funny. Because we talk about that a lot, about the Black culture and raising kings and queens and even having children's name represent that or whatnot. But also at the same time, it's frustrating and aggravating when the way that they raise children. It's not that it needs to be a certain blackness. It's just a certain respectfulness of them being human beings and taking the time or asking for the time and resources to educate yourself, because guess what? This is your first time parenting fully. And you get to choose if you're going to do that respectfully, mindfully, and in a way that's going to contribute positively for your family or not. And it is two to tangle, like my husband said. So sometimes it's leaning in and being like, trading ideas of like, what do you think is best? Or what do I think that's best? Because I can tell you right now, it's what you're not saying is very telling, and how your kids are presented are very telling of how you parent. Which is kind of why I created this podcast, because there's only so much I can say on my parenting online program that I distributed and taught for a whole year, because a lot of it was conversations that had to happen outside of that like teaching lessons moment, because real life was also happening at the same time.
So there's a couple, I don't know if it's exactly following what you're saying, but like you see it in TV, you see it in the movies, you see it all around us, that like the way you parent your child is going to ultimately like shape them for their future. And a lot of times, men in particular will either be just like their dads if they were, a drunk and all this stuff, and continue that legacy. Then they'll beat their kid, and that kid will grow up to have another kid, and he'll beat his kid, and stuff like that. Or they can do the exact opposite in spite of their father. Whereas, like for my dad, he was emotionally he wasn't as available, I guess you would say, or vulnerable at times. Now, he wasn't a bad father, but he did his part, but there was not a lot of "I love you, son, I'm proud of you, son." And so
no hugs.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot of hugs either. But in spite of that, I want to choose to be better. So I'm very vocal about it with Adrian. Like, hey, I love you. I'm proud of you. Hey, you did a good job. So I want to give her what I didn't have, the things I struggled.
And I think because I would like to say we're good parents. I think we have that foresight, and that we hope that that's what everybody thinks. But I think you and I have both seen it in both of our cultures, where it literally is so normal to go south. And it's so normal to not have that as like the insight that is fundamental to have a safe and emotionally and physically safe home. And also topic of like emotional abuse, like, and physical abuse, and like being able to use, it sucks when you can't use the police system in order to help with those situations, because that they're made to be against us in certain situations. Not saying that's how it is everywhere, because you and I live in the suburbs, and the cops out here are completely different from the way when you and I were raised up in the inner city, where cops were almost like a threat, and just how they presented themselves was always very emotionless. And it's really funny because I think of my two brothers who are cops, and how they are as people, and then who they are when they work as well too.
You want to talk about that. That's another conversation where I feel people as a whole are not receptive to the idea of like what it truly takes to be a police officer. But you have to understand, you deal with disgruntled, angry, drunk, people on drugs, people in crisis moments, people in their worst day situations on a day-to-day basis. And you are not allowed to react in the way that you would truly react. And again, that's not all cops, but it is going to be a very hard job, especially like the classic, they pull you over on the side of the road, the cop's walking up to the car. That cop has no idea who you are. No idea. And I'm not trying to Blue Lives Matter bullshit, but I'm just saying that is a very hard job. And there are some good cops out there, but unfortunately, I think there are a lot more bad cops who have learned to kind of abuse the power. But again, all at the same time, that is not an easy job.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you on that, especially with what happened in 2020 last year. It was very much because I love you, in a situation like that, how real that happened to us and how directly impactful that was. It was in growing up in the system that I did, which is I grew up in the hood, for real. I grew up in the actual black hood, and my husband grew up on the hill, where it was well-balanced community. It was all the parents knew everybody. They talked to each other. They planned gatherings. They even had a neighborhood block party. I was like, my block parties were like donations from a Christian church 40 miles away. And it's like, hopefully it was a good day, you know, and volunteers that didn't always show up. It was always a charity case, and you get used to being a charity case. And there's that idea of like learned helplessness, I think. I mean, I definitely saw it with my mom being a trauma victim. I think after you go through so many rounds of repetition of seeing the worst after the worst after the worst, that's a hard thing to do. And then also go home and have a regular routine of having a family life. So I can have all the compassion for police officers, especially because you're a military dude and you were deployed, and there was so much that physically, literally, there was thousands of miles between you and me that like you could not help me out with on the daily, or have the emotional toll of understanding the complications that do arise without me knowing. And it's just the realities of life. What we are gonna change this up a little bit, because I'm sure you guys are probably asking how my husband and I make this relationship work. We cut each other off a lot. We speak for each other a lot. I know, we know that. Okay, we've had therapy sessions where, yes, we are aware that's what happens. He comes to my therapy sessions because of there's a lot. And also at the same time, in the therapy talk, it's like he has been nothing but supportive, because that is a new venture for him. And seeing it as a safe place and a neutral place, truly a neutral place, where it means nothing to the therapist going home that day. And it means everything to us because it was our session. Point of what I was trying to say there is we're going to bring it up back to being positive here and what's helped our marriage. And the three things that I think that has helped our marriage is, one, therapy, or my therapy sessions, and how to be a better wife and how I can show up as the wife I want to be. And two would be communication. I think that's something that we always throughout our life will always need support with, because we are two completely whole individuals with emotions, thoughts, and experiences that, as much as we have known each other, sometimes we get too comfortable and take the leniency route without us even knowing. And so I think having that communication barrier, even though it's annoying to over communicate, it interrupts a lot of what could have been massive blowout conversations. And lastly, I think it would be putting you and I first, and really enjoying. When I say first, I don't mean like him putting me first and I putting him first, putting ourselves in this relationship first. So me figuring out my self-care time and him figuring out his self-care time, how much he needs, and understanding that they may vary. He may need a night of playing games. I may need 4 nights at the massage house, completely different, but like everybody has their different needs, and to respectfully just not be judgmental about it. What do you think? What are your 3 advices?
Therapy has been beneficial because sometimes it is very helpful to have that third person in the room, kind of the intermediate between the conversations, because we'll be saying the same thing, but like on different frequencies. We just don't quite hear each other, because I think sometimes we have different ideas, and that therapist can kind of take the information in and translate it in a way for you to truly understand, not just listen, but to like actively listen and effectively respond to what I'm saying. And then, going into 2, communication. That's what, working with a therapist kind of helps us work on, is that communication will always be, I'm not going to say issue, but something that's always going to be worked on, because life is always changing. You can have a rough day at work. I could have a rough day at work, come home, and sometimes you really need to over communicate and express what's been going on, so that, again, when you're having conversations, things aren't taken the wrong way. And it goes a long way when you truly work on communication. And 3, yes, putting ourselves first as individuals, so that we can come together in a relationship ready to go. Like, I can't be 50% myself, but expected to be 100% with you on all the time, because then I'm just not happy. And, there's going to be ups and downs in a relationship, but like you were saying, I've had a long week. We spent a lot of quality time together. Saturday nights for the boys, I just want to play some games. I want to squat up and hang out with some buddies and kind of refresh myself. And then boom, I'm like, I've had some of my own personal quality time. Now I'm good for this next week. I'm good to hang out with you again. I'm good to be there with Avery and not be happy in that situation and thinking like, oh man, I wish I could just be playing games right now. Like, I had my, you got to find that balance.
So pretty much you said the same thing I did with more examples.
Oh, that's what the point is.
No, I said, what are your 3 advices that you would do? It's fine. The next one here is, what is one advice that you'd give to newly married couple? Well, what did you write down? Because we went to a lot of weddings this past summer. And they always had the table was recommended advice.
Oh, newly married couple. This would change a little bit depending on like if I really know them, or like if I know how long they've been together. But if it's like a good friend, they've been together for a long time. Like, what did I say? Like, don't forget who you were before this marriage, and that kind of goes back to what we were saying. Where like you are still a person at the end of the day. Don't spend every day busting your balls just to make her happy, because in the end, most likely you're gonna be unhappy. Like, realize that you are two people coming together, that you both have personalities, both have your own desires and wants, and that it's about working as a team, to effectively be there as a team. Like, sometimes it's nice to take time for yourself, and also give the other person grace and allow them to take their time they request it or need it, or they can't see it. You need to tell them to the face, like, yo, I think you need to go take a bath and light some candles and chillax.
Yeah, I know I'm pretty horrible at that, just because I do have a million things going on all the time, and I am spread pretty thin. And that's sometimes, I think, just being a mom, you kind of forget like that you need support. So it's nice when he does remind me, when he does remember, or the opportunity arises. So the last bit here I really want to do with you, and it's called Adulting is Hard. Okay, what is one thing that you wish someone taught you about being a responsible adult now that is like for you to take care of for the rest of your life?
Oh my God, that list is so long, man. I can start taxes, how to file, how to buy a house, like keep important documents, like your medical history, all that kind of stuff, like how to, house maintenance. Like you need to cut the grass, snow removal, how to lay down ice, how to take care of a yard, how to like fix up stuff around the house, it just goes on and on, like simple car stuff. Like I'd have been like generally most women don't know how to change a tire, like that's
like oil changes.
Yeah, oil change. I can do an oil change. I'm just too lazy. I'm just gonna drive and have someone else do it. Especially in the winter months, it gets cold in Minnesota. But just simple things that would truly make an impact on your life, like world geography and geometry. Like that was cool in high school, but it literally didn't prepare me for anything. We have so much technology nowadays, and technology is just gonna get better that like it doesn't really directly impact my life. But like a class explaining how the tax code breaks down and how to use it and actually work it, like that would have been huge. Or like how health insurance, all those like real adult benefits. And I noticed a lot, like the big one, buying a house. I have a lot of friends who are still like roomies with each other and all this other stuff. They have apartments and they're so lost when it comes to buying a house. And they always come to me because like I'm the first of kind of my friend group to really get a house. They're like, well, what did you have to do? What did you do this? And it's just crazy that we were not taught these life skills in school.
And mind you, the friends that we're all talking about here, for you and for me, is like, these are people of color who did not have mom and dads who owned homes, who were redlined in the 60s and the 70s, just as much as the Black community was on buying homes and that process. And a lot of it was fearmongering into those structures and systems that benefited white people. So it's really hard to have 30 years later, be like, yeah, now I know how to buy a house. Or what you and I always question about is when our loan officer said to us, like, oh, do you guys have like a gift or anything like that you guys can use for down payment? And you and I kind of looked at each other like, what? People get gifted these things? Where do people get gifted things for their house? Like things like appliances, but like money. Where do people get money for down payments? Like down payments are not like 1,000. They're like 10, 20, 30.
Rule. Yeah. 20% of the house's value. I don't know how you're supposed to save up. So was it
that much in a lifetime since the day that you were born?
A $200,000 house, you're like saving up $20,000. How? Especially in today's world, it's so hard to get a job out of college.
And then also apparently have really good credit score and also have the money at the same time. I feel like if you're a person of color, you either have one or the other, not both. Because that money care is not something that we have the privilege of knowing, nor our white friends are willing to give us that information willingly in part of social conversations in which they benefit from conversations that they just normally have with mom and dad. So my last question for you is, how do you feel about this podcast now that you've done your 1 hour?
It's interesting. I'm typically I wouldn't say reserved guy, but a lot of my internal monologue and thoughts like that, especially on sensitive subjects, I don't like to talk with most people because a lot of people can't sit down and have a conversation about hard topics and not get like
offended.
Yeah, like get offended or very angry, but just like try to be open-minded and inquire and get like information and stuff like that. So it's really weird for me to like talk to a mic is what it feels like. Because I'm talking to you, but I'm so used to talking to you. But like knowing that people are going to listen, it's like I'm talking to this mic. I'm just staring. So it's a little weird. But once I get started on a topic, like sometimes I can get going once I'm comfortable. So it's not too bad.
How proud are you of me?
On a scale of 1 to 2.
Why? Why, babe? Why?
I mean, you're making it happen. Like, you talked about this, you did your research, I think I want to do this, and now you're putting out useful information, and you're like I said, you're going all in, and you're dedicated, and so yeah.
Oh, thanks, babies. Thanks, baby, not babies. That's because I was looking at a photo of my baby. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really hope that you enjoyed this fruitful and mindful conversation that we had today. It's our intimate talks that we have every day for each other. It's something that we put on the pedestal for both of us to just be mindful and aware and have open thoughts about. None of these are all full final decisions or anything like that. These are just more so mindful conversations that we are sharing with you. And I really hope that you enjoy this episode as much as I did. See you next week. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of The Necessary Break with your host, Philantha. We love that you enjoyed yourself with this episode. Send us a voice memo of your favorite moment, write a 5-star review, and click subscribe to be the first to listen to the next episode. See you next week.